discussion. I'm going to introduce our panelists who are here today with us. We have Aziz Abubakar, who is a sustainability project manager and consultant, and he's passionate about sustainable development, innovation, technology, and he's also the founder of the executive director of the Sustainable Solutions for Green Growth. And about Aziz, he's a certified lead green associate, 2021 Global Citizen Fellow, and delegate in the COP26 and Youth for Climate. And he's also the regional winner for the 2022 World Bank Group Youth Summit Case Challenge and an Economic Forum Global Shaper and Partnerships and Engagement Committee Chair for the Commonwealth Youth Climate Change Network. And for him, what drives him is mainly driving to get help for the most affected communities that are facing the impacts of the climate crisis impact, and also extreme poverty. And also, we are joined by Catherine Chaweza, who is a communication practitioner, and she's trained in communication, media, peace studies, and grassroots mobilization, and also holds over 20 years of experience in public relations, communications, and outreach. She's an Alliance for Science Fellow and is currently the Chief Information, Education, and Communication Officer at the National Commission for Science and Technology in Malawi. She's completing her PhD in health communication, and she has a biotech and biosafety communications and outreach experience from being the country communications and outreach officer coordinator for the program of biosafety systems. And also one of our other panelists will be Haron Waso, who is the current Mr. Climate Kenya. He is the founder for the Green Prince Foundation that seeks to equip the young children with green skills through community engagement. And he hopes to equip these skills to the young children to enable them to preserve their natural environment and embrace green energy practices, and also engage in climate change mitigation. And he's constantly engaging with the youth to develop climate smart solutions to the challenges that we are currently facing. So we'll just dive straight to it and start with Aziz. So Aziz, maybe you can tell us what your understanding of plastic pollution and what your understanding of plastic pollution is, and how you feel that they impact the aquatic and terrestrial and
Yes, Pastor Peter. Poa kabisa.
Oh, hello, Aziz. Are you there? I think Aziz is having a network issue, so we'll move to Haron. So maybe Haron, you can explain.
Excuse me, Peter, maybe you need to stop sharing your screen so we can see the speakers.
Okay. So we can dive right into it. We see Aziz is having some issue, but we can go straight to Catherine. So Catherine, what is your understanding of plastic pollution, and how do you feel they impact the aquatic and also the terrestrial environments?
Thank you so much for having me. Allow me to take it down to the basics. My understanding as a communicator, I will speak of my understanding of plastic pollution in the same way that I would allow my grandmother to understand. So my understanding of plastic pollution is where we have plastics thrown all over the place, and then they are not degradable because we know they do not decompose. So they are there for years and impacting, I'll go to the basics again, impacting our farms, impacting our water sources, and doing us more harm than the use for which we initially intended it. So we know that the plastics that are there now have been around for over 20 years. The ones that we still have now, literature tells us that over 50% of the plastics that we still have running around polluting our environment are plastics that have just been produced just the past 20 years. And we know that what that means for the next 5, the next 10. If nothing is done to curb the use of these thin plastics, and then their subsequent pollution of our environment, we know what that means. If what we have right now, 50% of it has been just produced just the past 2 decades, what about going forward? So my simplistic understanding of plastic pollution is having those plastics that we buy, maybe to use for carrying things from the market, having them do us more harm beyond the intended purpose that we had when we initially got them. So the simplest way of putting it is, maybe for Kenya, now you don't have that problem. But I remember coming to Kenya in the past, not too long ago, you'd see these little blue plastics all over the place, littering everywhere. So the basic and the most simple way to understand is how it has even polluted our surroundings. So I'll keep it there for the moment. That's how I understand plastic pollution.
Thank you so much, Catherine. So maybe Haron, you can tell us, like, what are some of the effects that we've seen that these plastics have on our environment, maybe on our daily lives, and where are we heading? What is the future looking like for us because of this plastic?
Okay, thank you so much. I think you are getting me now clear. Hello. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you, Haron. We
Yes,
can
we can hear you, Haron.
Okay, thank you. I was having some issues with my network, but I think now I'm well to go. So the effect of plastic are prone to, for example, we can start with the issue of like more than 2,000 trucks nowadays are dumping the plastics inside the rivers. And this one is causing a lot of problems. For example, for those people that use rivers and oceans and lakes, plastic pollution has grown to a global, each and every day, 19 to 23 million tons of plastics waste leaks into aquatic ecosystem. And this one pollutes the lake, rivers, and seas. We also suffer from resurrection infections. this causes causes the reduced ability of swimming and internal injuries. For example, those people that the sea divers and they always use water, for example, to save or do their activities. Maybe the plastics inside the water causes some injuries to them and causes some damage to those divers. Again, for the floating plastics also help in transportation in invasive marine species, thereby threatening marine biodiversity food web. So you found it's causing a lot of problems to such things, leading to an effect to the surrounding. So a lot of plastics now have also promoted to unclean environment. For example, each and every place nowadays, when you walk, when you move in every place, you find some liters of plastics. There's some bottles of used water that have been thrown each and every place. And you see now, you cannot ban, you cannot throw them maybe for a place like you just throw them in a place, it will cause some little bit of waste. So it has caused some effects. I think that's my point towards that question. So I think we need to look for solutions on how we can come up with a better way to reduce the effect of these plastics in this ecosystem.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Haron. And it's clear that we actually need to reduce these plastics within our ecosystem because they are causing all these harms to everyone, not just us, but also the environment. And so maybe I think we are all aware of the existence of different plastic-free alternatives out there. And maybe my next question will be, what influences people to actually use these plastic products instead of using the plastic-free alternatives that exist? I think Catherine can start off.
Yes. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I think what makes people use these plastics is because, bottom line, they're accessible. They're there. That's the biggest thing. And they seem to be like the cheapest available means because they're thinking of today. They buy one today, they use it, they throw it. They buy another tomorrow, they use it, they throw it. But they don't think of the cumulative costs that they are even getting out of just buying these plastics every day. Unlike if they were to use alternatives. So I remember growing up, we had baskets, those weaving baskets. That's what the same one we would take to the market for a year or so. And those are biodegradable. So I think what makes the people, one, those plastics are accessible. Two, they are not aware of the evils of using those thin plastics. They are not aware. To them, it's to most, it's normal that they buy it, they use it, they throw it. The implications of that, they don't know. So it's basically, for me, it's two things. The accessibility of these thin plastics, the plastics are available for them to get. One. Two, are they aware? You agree with me that most would not be aware that these are not good. But even for those who are aware, it's just they have been told these are bad. Has it been broken down to them how bad these plastics are? So because they've just been told that these are bad, they don't understand how bad it is. They'll keep buying, they'll keep using as long as those plastics are available, because it's a matter of behavior. They need to be reached from the core to change their behaviors. And also, I know governments are doing a lot to curb the access of these plastics, but as long as they are available, people will continue using them because they are not really aware of the deep meaning of having these plastics all over the place. So those two things, accessibility and lack of proper awareness. Thank you.
So maybe Haron, you're in Kenya where there's been a plastic ban for a while now. So maybe you can tell us something about the accessibility of plastics following the ban compared to how it was before the ban on plastic.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kijuku. I want to say, like, you see, after considering the ban of plastics, a little bit to experience some change. There was a reduction of plastic usage, and now it has turned back to the way it was because people now are accessing these plastics using the incorrect way. Like there is a way that they're going to buy this kind of plastic materials in a very wrong way. So you see, you find people, as much as they have restricted the usage of plastics, you just find that people are accessing these plastics using getting them from different countries, and then they enter the nation minus those legal act like the registration, the licensing. So you find people using, and it has now prone to a very big problem again because a lot of communities now they're using the same plastics, and the reason being, as far as they have put some restriction over the usage of plastics, people are just like they are seeing them as the easily accessible materials to package, to use for canning, for food, and then like it is the most easiest way to find. And you see, people don't want they don't want to spend a lot. As far as they are importing, as far as they are buying these plastics, they're buying them on a cheap price. So when considering the issue of using and then getting it, plastics, they're buying them at a cheap price. So and also packaging them is at a cheap price. So people consider that as a point, then they choose to use plastics, more plastics than the other materials. And then we have not gotten the good people who, or a good team or a good company that can facilitate or they can produce something else apart from plastics. So you find that people get too much in use of plastics than like those materials that are not of plastics. So we need to get a team of people who are literate to find knowledge on how to make other materials that can be used apart from plastics. So I think we as Kenyans, we need to use the lawful way on how we can use or how we can get out of from using these plastic materials. I think the only way we can use is now getting back now to the lawful way. If you find using plastic materials, if you have any plastic material, I think action need to be done so that we can also make our country clean, and not just in Kenya, but also our nearby countries and nations. Yeah, I think that can act better. And if you're found using plastic, you get a fine or you get jail, you get somebody because of using plastics.
So maybe, Catherine, you'd mentioned something about using these traditional bags that were made. They've been there for the longest time ever, and we've probably all interacted with them at some point or the other. So I'd like you to maybe tell us what are some of the possible alternatives that we can incorporate into our daily life to actually spearhead this fight against the use of single-use plastics.
Before, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Before I answer that question, I would like to respond to what my fellow panelist has just said behind me. He talked of banning these things. Banning is the way to go. Yes, governments have done that. But then he also mentioned of how after the ban, like here in Kenya, that plastics are finding their way back, even though people know that those have been banned. That's why I said earlier on that it is important to make the people understand. First of all, look at the policymakers should have an understanding of what is the relationship that is there between these people and the plastics. What are the people's attitudes towards plastics? Because if you just go ahead and ban when you have not really analyzed what the people feel about plastics, when you have not clearly given them information on why these plastics are wrong, they'll keep bringing them. They'll find their own way of bringing them, despite the issue of having a ban. So first of all, let's talk about dealing with the inner person, looking at how do they view these plastics, their behavior towards plastics. Why is it that way? Do they know the evil behind using these plastics? So I'm thinking this is what governments should be dealing with first. And then after that, maybe they would go on and ban, while people have really understood why these plastics are not the best to use. So to come to your question about what other alternatives communities have, apart from these weaving baskets, the baskets have been there and they are still here. I'm thinking the baskets are the best. And also they could use fabric. Yeah, they would make carrier bags out of fabric. We have fabric, good fabrics like cotton that they use. And even what's that fabric called? Hieshan, the one that they use for making the bags. Like there are these white polythene bags, and then there are the other ones that are the thick ones, the traditional ones that we used to know. Those ones are good too. So the alternatives are there. They just have to be encouraged. But you are only going to encourage the use of those alternatives after the people understand why using plastics is bad. So that's why I keep saying, I keep coming back to it, that we need to deal with the people's understanding of how these things are bad. So we need to go to their behaviors and deal with their behaviors and help them to change their behaviors in as far as the use of thin plastics is concerned.
Thank you, Kathy. And you've noted something very important, that this may be a behavioral issue on the people's side. So maybe tell us, you're the communications specialist here. So tell us, how can we effectively communicate the urgency of plastic pollution as it is, in order to allow these people to change their behavior on an individual level? Because before now we focus on the country level. How do we change individual behavior?
Uncle.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned the issue of this being an individual issue as opposed to leaving it to government to deal with it. Because we have to get to that level where every individual understands that this is my responsibility and not government responsibility. So when people get to that point, the ban that we are talking about, the enforcement of the regulations that have been put will not even be important, because the people will now know by themselves that as an individual, I have this responsibility of curbing the use of these plastics. So I would look at it from a behavior change perspective to say that the interventions should be tailor-made behavior change interventions, and they should be context-based, not generalized. You can't just go to the TV and say, when you use plastics, it will choke your rivers. It will get to the community. Talk to them about a river that they know. Talk to them about a river that they use. And now have that discussion with them. Tell them how in the next 50 years, that river might not even be there because it has been choked by plastics. So it has to be context-based. Speak to their core. Speak to what matters to them. Because if you just bring it as something in general, it will not mean anything. You know, that's where they will now look at it as a government responsibility. But talk to them, look them in the face, tell them this concerns this river, that is your source of water, this particular river that you use for irrigation, this particular river that you go to wash clothes, this particular river that you've had for years, this river that you found, the future generations may not find it. So speak to them or touch their emotions so that they understand. You're not touching their emotions just to influence them or to force them, no, but you want them to get the message, to get the true message, to get the real picture of what the continued use of these plastics will mean to their lives. Because if you just give them the messages generally, and I know most countries did not even take time to educate the people. They just went straight to reinforcing the bans and whatnot. That's why it cannot work. But make the people realize why they don't need these plastics, and then allow them, because you've given them the information, allow them now to carry on this message because they believe in it, because they know it's true, because they know it's for their own good. They will carry it even to their children, to their communities. And I want to believe that's the way that this can be curbed. Other than that, when it's a ban, it becomes like a fight, us against them. It's like the government against us. And the people might not even understand why the government is saying, let's not use this. So we should take them from the bottom, make them understand, and with specific examples of how this can affect them, they will surely understand. And in such cases, the ban might not even the enforcement of the ban. The ban might be necessary. The ban is necessary, but the enforcement part of it might not even be necessary because the people will understand.
Maybe, thank you so much, Kathy. And I understand that it's up to us as individuals to actually take on this head on. And the issue of the ban keeps coming up. So maybe we can still revisit it a bit with Haron and tell us, maybe have you seen its effectiveness in reducing the use of single-use plastic? And also, while you're speaking on the ban, you can talk about how it has been received by the youths in Kenya.
Okay, thank you so much. Like I said, for example, during the ban, when they had banned the issue of plastics, you see the percentage of using plastics reduced because of the laws, because of the legitimatizing, because of the regulations that were put across for the use of plastics. And many people coped up with the situation because they found it like when we do this, when we use plastics, it's doing this, it's causing this and this. now people embarked on the way that they use those recycled or those virgin materials that were free from plastics. Now, after the relaxation on the banning, people now have embarked back now to the use again of the plastic materials. You see, now the people are importing, they are getting these plastic materials or plastic papers, plastic bottles through an illegal way. For example, they are coming inside the country in a way that even the borders, the security on the border cannot check, and then they are selling to the people in a very cheap price. So you find now it is now increasing again, surpassing the percent that it was. So I think as far as we are teaching, we're educating the community on the effects of plastics. After teaching them or educating them about the effects, now we need now to use the forceful way. For example, we have taught a certain market, you have taught about a certain school institution on the use of plastics. Then now after a short period, now you embark the laws. These laws will force now the community to understand or to get better that the use of plastics, the use of materials that are generated from plastics is effective to the environment. If we don't do that, I think we shall remain a dirty nation full of plastics and full of materials that are made from plastics. So I think that's my point towards that statement or that question you've asked me to answer.
I think we can move to Aziz, who's joined us, and maybe speaking about the circular economy. Plastics do not just come out of thin air. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about where these plastics come from, and maybe what interventions can be made by the industries that manufacture these plastics to actually reduce their penetration within our markets.
Okay, same to me. Okay, I think the best way
I think Aziz has joined us, so we can hear from him first.
me.
Oh, all right.
Let me-
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Aziz.
Yeah, thank you so much. I must have missed the time zone conversion. Sorry about that. Sorry for joining in late. And thank God I noticed earlier before the meeting ended. So my name is Aziz Abubakar, and good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and whatever time you're joining us from. My name is Aziz Abubakar once again. I'm the founder and the Executive Director of Sustainable Solutions for Green Growth. I'm also part of a youth community called the Loss and Damage Youth Coalition. And I'm participating through my engagement in the Loss and Damage Youth Coalition. And I would like to speak to the question that was asked around what are the sources of plastic pollution and how do they impact the the environment in general. So plastic pollution originates from various sources. I know primarily it's driven by human activities. So and a larger percent of the plastic pollution that we have is coming from single-use plastics, such as PET bottles and plastic bags, and also industrial processes, like crude oil, mining and all of that, also creates plastics. And also from, clothing, particularly clothing, polyester, all sort of plastic based clothing materials, and also cosmetics are very like very rich sources of plastics. And you would also notice fishing gears, like the nets and some of the ropes are made from plastics as well. So, and you know, when plastic pollution when plastic wastes enters the environment, like the ocean or the rivers or land, it poses a severe threat to life on land and life below water. And you know, for example, marine creatures like fishes that we eat would ingest plastics, microplastics that you wouldn't see with your eye, but exist in the ecosystem. So they ingest it, and then we take the fish, we eat it, and you know we also have plastics in our bodies, and you know all of this is like a cycle. So whereby you know when we've taken in microplastics, you know pregnant women who are you know exposed to that could transfer you know these microplastics to their children, and you know it poses a serious threat not just to the individual but also to the unborn child. So, like the whole issue of plastic pollution really is a serious conversation that we need to have, and it's really something that we need to work towards addressing all across the world, not just in one part of the world, but all across the world. It is not even enough to ban plastic pollution in some parts of the world, right? Because, for example, there are some communities or countries who produce plastics. They actually don't use them, but they produce them because they import a lot. They export a lot of goods to other countries. So other countries are now dump sites for their plastic pollution. So the global conversation around plastic pollution is also very key. I think there was a plastic pollution treaty that was agreed to during the United Nations Environment Assembly, the UN EA, and that was held in Kenya and last year. And you know, we need to think more about ways we could localize everything that has to do with that, you know, policy documents around plastic pollution and around communities can, you know, get rid of plastics. And I think, yes, sir.
Thank you, Aziz. I think we'll can move to Catherine for one moment, and then we'll come back to you. So, Catherine, you can tell us maybe what you feel are the challenges that may arise when we now decide to move into this plastic independent system, a system where we are not using single-use plastics and actually just using the sustainable alternatives.
If we get to that point where indeed we have transitioned and we are using the sustainable alternatives, then that's the perfect world, isn't it? That's what we are looking at. But I'll still say it will be very difficult to get there if we don't engage the people to get them to a point where they understand why they have to move to these other alternatives. So when we get there, it will be the perfect world. That's what we are looking for. That's what we are thinking to happen. But now it will be very difficult to get there before the people really have been empowered with knowledge to get them to the point to understand where they will make deliberate choices, like where in cases where they've been given to choose between a plastic and the other alternatives, they should get to that point where they understand it enough and they will not choose the plastic, but they will choose the sustainable means. So I'll still go back to what I'm saying, that the people need to be assisted to change their behaviors in as far as their relationship with plastics is concerned. Only then can we get to that idealistic space where people deliberately choose the good alternatives over the plastics. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Catherine. And also, I think we can hear from Haron, and he can tell us maybe still, I'll pose the same question to him. What kind of challenges do you think will arise to us and the environment when we now transition to a plastic independent system where we have just sustainable alternatives that work for us?
Okay, thank you so much. As we are staying on this ecosystem, on transitioning from plastic dependent system to move to a sustainable alternative, and how can this challenge be addressed? I think we might be lacking a lot of technical skills for hazardous waste. I think that's the point number one. Our technical team need to be set aside for the provision of skills in managing the hazardous waste. Then I think the problem again, the second problem might be the insufficient infrastructure development for the recycling, recovery, and above all, for example, we might be having the way or the concept on how we can use or recycle these plastic materials, but lack of infrastructure, lack of insufficient wage finance can cause a very big problem in the recovery of this plastic eradication. Then lack of awareness, I think, is also the point. Lacking of the awareness of the rules and regulations and the key factors behind these massive plastic waste. For example, you are going to a community, you are going to a very specific town. Now you are teaching people, and people because they lack or because they are unskilled and they have no knowledge on the thoughts and education, you might go to a certain community, you are teaching them about the effects of plastics, but people, because of rudeness and because of the character that have developed in between them, so they lack that awareness of the effect or the goodness of plastics. And then the natural cloth can replace plastic bags, and sustainable clothing made from organic cotton, wool, hemp, or bamboo can be a better way of clearing out the use of plastics. Now, when we choose on this, I think it can be a solution to pull away or to clear away the issue of plastics, but coming up with a person or those people or a technical team to work on this can be the problem over this issue. So I think we need to get a better way on how we can reach the community, how we can drive this point to the community, and the community discuss on the importance of turning back to the normal way rather than using plastics. I think the last point over that, I think we need to upgrade the waste infrastructure and improve business practices behavior that can change and can be leveraged through relative inexpensive and straightforward intervention. For example, we have found these plastic materials being cheap. So the only way we can enhance and we can recycle, reuse, and reduce is by lifting the prices of these plastics materials to go high, and then produce those materials that are non-plastic to be on a cheaper price. Now, this point will make a lot of people, a lot of society, a lot of companies to embark on the cheaper things rather than using the plastic ways. I think that's my points towards the question of us about the challenges that might arise in transitioning from plastic dependent into a system that can be sustainable to the use of plastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Haron. And we understand that maybe price controls might be an effective control measure against the use of single-use plastics. So maybe I'll pose the same question to Aziz. I can give you 2 minutes because we are running out of time before we move to the questions from members joining us in. So just tell us the challenges that you feel will arise when we move to a plastic independent system and embrace more of these sustainable alternatives, and maybe how we can address these challenges that come up.
Oh, sorry. I didn't quite get, the network was breaking, so I didn't hear the question properly. Could you go again very quickly?
So what I'm asking is, how is it that what challenges do you think might arise when we transition to a plastic independent system and embrace more of these sustainable alternatives that you're talking about? And maybe how can we address these challenges?
Oh, sure, definitely. Thank you for asking that question around challenges that may arise. To be honest with you, when it comes to adopting the solution, there is always going to be a challenge, and there are ways in which we can mitigate those challenges in order to actually drive action and towards a good or sustainable future. So a lot of challenges that come around are mostly from the issue of plastic dependent systems, because we've been so dependent on the use of plastics for packaging a lot of products. So it can present a lot of challenges like costs, which you mentioned earlier. So, when it comes to adopting sustainable alternatives, it may initially be costly to afford, because other packaging options like plastics have been made so affordable and so cheap to the producers. So one way to address this is to really reduce the cost, and you can do that as a government by incentivizing businesses to adopt eco-friendly practices through, you can either adopt tax breaks or subsidies. Also, infrastructure is one very key thing. As you know, I think this was something that was mentioned earlier in terms of the infrastructure needed to recycle and to probably rethink waste production, and also, there is also the issue of consumer resistance, whereby people have been so used to plastic products or plastic packaging. So there is also a need to actually educate a lot of people about the benefits of actually using sustainable alternatives. And they need to see beyond just contributing to the environment, but also more in line with how it actually helps them as a person to be more healthy and to be more safe. Also, I think another issue is the supply chain complexity when it comes to sourcing sustainable materials, and it can be challenging sometimes sourcing sustainable materials, because the supply chain has not been so well established yet due to maturity period, and but it's a very key way to actually do this is to encourage collaboration between industries. The more industries are collaborating with one another, they're able to create a more stable supply chain whereby the resources or the materials needed, the raw materials needed to produce sustainable packaging are made available to the producers, and the producers are able to produce them and pass it on to businesses who then uses them. So I think some other regulatory, those are also some of the challenges, and the fact that innovation could really encourage research and development in sustainable materials and packaging techniques. And I think that this could really make them more accessible and cost effective. So innovation has really helped a lot in terms of promoting eco-friendly practices and product standards when it comes to addressing these challenges. So in all, I think that's an holistic approach to addressing it should be adopted by governments, industry, and consumers, because we all need to work together. One key stakeholder can't do it alone. We all need to work together as key stakeholders to really address this issue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abubakar. And see, we are right on time, and thank you for your comments. So as you post your questions, any questions that you may have in the chat, maybe I can try and summarize what.
Excuse me.
Oh, hi, Haron. Please, sure.
I think people are following, and some people have posed some questions in my inbox, and I wanted to share. I wanted to give
you can read them out. And
somebody has asked, how can industries and business adopt a circular economy principles to reduce plastics waste and promote sustainable practices? And then the other one has asked, what plastic-free alternatives can be easily incorporated into our daily lives? I think I can give an answer. I think I can give an answer to one question, then another person will react to the another question. So the person that has asked,
yes,
what
you can react in 1 minute.
Yes, let me react quickly in 1 minute.
You can react in 1 minute and have Aziz answer the other.
You can react or I react? Hello? Hello?
Hello, we still have you, Haron.
Okay, so I react to one question, then another person will react to another question. So quickly, the person that has asked about what plastic-free alternatives can be easily incorporated into our daily lives.
I think, Haron,
for example, answer number one.
You're having issues with your network. We can move to Aziz with one of the questions. And Aziz, so one of the questions is, what plastic-free alternatives can we easily incorporate in our daily lives? Please take a minute to answer that. I think we have lost Aziz, but I think
hello,
in our daily life. Oh yes. Aziz, we still have you. So just take a minute to tell us.
Sorry, I didn't hear the last part of your question.
Just tell us a few of the plastic-free alternatives that we can easily incorporate in our daily lives that literally take nothing to take up. So take a minute to respond to this as we wind up.
All right, so as we wind up, I think some of the most effective ways to communicate the effectiveness or the urgency of plastic pollution is to really encourage behavioral change at an individual level. And I think that's a lot of the conversations we've been having here today has mostly been towards, how can we encourage behavioral change, and how can we really drive meaningful engagement, and also how can we secure policy support and to challenge people to stay away from plastics. So very important that we involve the community, and collaboration is very key as it has to do with plastic pollution. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think the other question, Haron, you can respond to it also in 1 minute, and just tell us maybe how can these industries that we have adopt circular economy principles in order to reduce the plastic waste and also promote these sustainable practices.
I think answer number one is by adopting circular economy principles, such as offering repair and refurbishment services for your products. Then extend the life of products and components that creates a new market for your services and help generate more revenue. Then retaining products ownership. For example, a product that has been lasting for 2 years, and then you have packed it in a plastic material. Then you need to longevify or the product life extension and design for a recycling mill. Then the second last answer is by batch startup. For example, Coco Automotive, the way they does recycling plastic. For example, the Poseske and the circulation. I think those are the answers to that question. So we need to identify the product that have been using, adopting a circular economy principles, then extending the life, then retaining a product ownership. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So I think we've come to the end. I can't see any other questions in the comment section. And I think what we've drawn from this is that most of the issues that we are facing surrounding plastics are issues that we can combat individually. And it all starts with you as an individual taking that extra step to actually refuse these single-use plastics, to carry your own bags and embrace these sustainable solutions. So I feel this, we've seen the consequences that plastic pollution has on the environment, on us, these microplastics that are everywhere. And it's something that we need to take up and actually work against. So maybe we can all find ways to join this sustainability journey and work together, encourage others to adopt sustainable practices. Let's carry our own bags. Let's go back to the nature that we had. We had those bags in our traditional, especially the African tradition is so rich in all these sustainable solutions to plastic solution. We have to plastic waste. We have bags, the chondo bags that we carry that are made from the sisal. We have these gourds that we use to carry liquids with. We have all these solutions to plastic. And the only way that we can end this plastic pollution is by us individually taking the initiative to actually combat it. And so we need to all remember to actually take those steps, encourage others to take the step, and fight plastic pollution, because without you, there is no way that we can hope to achieve a sustainable future that is free from plastic pollution. And as we close, on your screen, you can see invite to an award ceremony. We held an essay writing competition, a university essay writing competition in July. And we are hoping to find some sustainable solutions to the energy crisis that we hear. Everywhere, the energy prices are rising, and most of the energy that we are using comes from non-renewable sources of energy that end up degrading the environment. So as we move forward, thanks to the competition, we are able to see what African students thought about the sustainable energy, which is the nuclear energy. And we'll be hosting the prize giving ceremony on September 4th. And we'll have it on Zoom. So please, we'll be sharing the link online, and also we'll have it in person. So if you're free on that day, please join us. And we hope to actually have a good day and give those prizes. I don't know if Patricia, you have any further comments?
No, I don't, Peter. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So that brings us to the end of our webinar today. So thank you so much for everybody who has attended. And I hope to actually engage you further. Feel free to reach out with those questions about plastic, and we'll be happy to engage. We are also on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and you can follow us Replanet Africa. So have a good rest of the evening, and we'll see you again here next time. Thank you so much.